Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. Today is November 14th. It's amazing how quickly this month is already flying by. I looked and went, oh my gosh, it's Thanksgiving next week. It is absolutely insane. But it's, I don't even like, I'm still planning what we're even going to do for Thanksgiving, and it's coming up on us right now. In addition to a bunch of NBA basketball, it feels like this month has just been a whirlwind.
Yeah, it really has. I said to my wife this morning, actually, we are just sitting down and we were like little lull in the morning activities. And I said, "What are we doing for Thanksgiving?" And she was like, "Oh my God, that's next week." And we were in the same boat as you, where it was just like, okay, like I guess we got to start talking that and figuring all that stuff out. Thankfully, it's Thanksgiving is a little bit more of a low key holiday for us because it's just us and low key, not Loki holiday. But maybe we'll watch some Loki. I don't know, but it tends to be just us, so it's not a big deal. But I kind of like that because then we just get to hang out and do some stuff and watch some football and eat and all that good stuff. But yeah, man, it's like the month's gonna be over before we know it, and then everything's just moving too fast this year. It feels like.
See, in my house, we're already full on Christmas mode. I threw away our jack o' lanterns just 2 days ago. So I mean, it's like it just feels like everything's moving at warp speed. It'll be Thanksgiving and same thing. We're not doing anything exciting. We're just going to be hanging out, and then we'll be on to Christmas time, which will be a little bit more exciting. Got family coming into town, all that kind of stuff. But
Nice, nice.
I'm sure our viewers and listeners don't necessarily want to hear about all of that. And if we do have anything bonus, we'll throw in some scheduled nonsense at the end or something
There
like
we
that.
go.
So let's get to some NBA news. And let's start out with the news that didn't quite make it into yesterday's show, and that's that Mike Malone got a contract extension with the Denver Nuggets, which makes all kinds of sense. Win an NBA championship, get a contract extension, right? Goes hand in hand. So good on Mike Malone. Do you have the details on the? Do we know how many years the extension is good for on this?
I have not seen.
I haven't
I
seen it
will
either.
take another look here and see. They're getting to be very kind of quiet on these types of things. Let's see. Uh, all this says is it will make him one of the highest paid NBA coaches.
Okay.
That's from Woj's article on ESPN. So nothing beyond that. So yeah, my guess is probably 2-3 year extension on whatever he had left.
Yeah, that's and that's pretty standard. So
Yep.
good for Mike Malone, good for the Nuggets again. They've been obviously their plan worked out. We talked about this last summer, or summer before last, about how they were very in on this team. They were committing to this team moving forward. And that if things didn't go well, they were going to be kind of stuck with the team that they've got, or if they do go well, they're going to be well set for the future. Obviously, things went very well for them, and they continue to be a very, very good team, potentially playing like the best team in the NBA right now. So no slowdown for the Nuggets, and they're going to keep this thing moving right on forward by keeping Mike Malone long term. Do the Nuggets have the potential to become a dynasty?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's They do. I should just answer very simply that they
Yeah.
do because they have Nikola Jokic. He's gonna probably have at least, I would say, 4 or 5 great years left. They have the ability to probably keep 3 or 4 of those guys around him. I don't
Mhm.
know if they'll be able to keep everyone, and that's going to be what's going to, I think, answer some of these questions about dynasties moving forward. Is can these teams afford to one, can they afford it just truly with the penalties and the tax penalties and everything?
Right.
And can they build a functional roster with all of the restrictions that come in if you are a tax team and then an apron team and then a second apron team? Are you going to be able to continue to add pieces? Now they draft fairly well usually in Denver, so as long as they keep hitting on late 20s draft picks, they're probably going to be okay because you just kind of keep reloading that back end there. But if you miss on a couple of those, you're not necessarily going to have the ability to go get those guys in free agency, and that's going to be the challenge. I don't know how many teams we're going to see come in and have a Warriors like run, and I know that's a little kind of off because they had those couple bad years
Mhm.
where they really bottomed out. But it's still, to me, that's been like a what, now we're in like year 8, 9 of that run, maybe even starting to approach a decade long as they kind of came into prominence. So I don't know how many teams are going to be able to do that, just because I don't know how you're going to be able to keep those teams together. So that's what will be tracking over the next really 2, 3, 4 years of this CBA. How much does that break these sorts of teams up? And do they get enough years in quick enough when they're cheap enough that you can really extend this window versus does it break up very, very quickly?
So you mentioned like a Warriors type run. Part of what made the Warriors run so great was that, they took the gamble on Steph Curry, who at the time had ankle issues, and they
Yeah.
went ahead and signed him to a deal that wound up being a way below market value deal, and that helped them building out their roster from there. For example, they're not getting Kevin Durant if Stephen Curry is
Correct.
making what he should. So that's part of it. It'll be interesting to see with, as you mentioned, the new CBA rules coming in, because what tends to happen is when teams win, those players get paid. You get
Yep.
rewarded for it. And so as they become more and more expensive, will that ultimately cause them to have to make some difficult decisions? And we'll see. But I mean, Jokic still a young player, still a dominant player. You look at his stats; they don't look particularly with Jamal. Have you looked with Jamal Murray out and they're
Yeah.
running even more of the offense through Jokic?
Crazy.
It's video game numbers that he's put up. It is absolutely insane.
He
And
had something
anytime you
like
got him, you can build something incredible.
200 plus touches
Oh,
over a 2 game span, which is almost unheard of. Like they just know nobody really gets that, especially at the center position. So that's like a whole other thing with that. Speaking of the Warriors,
yeah.
Steph
Speaking of
Curry's
the
not going
Warriors,
to
there it
play,
is.
and that takes a lot of shine off that game with the Wolves. That
Yeah.
was one I was really looking forward to tonight. It's a in season tournament night in the NBA. So I'm going to diverge. This wasn't a show topic, but I want to ask
Yeah.
you about it. Do you feel like there's a little more juice on these in-season tournament nights?
Yes. I'm so glad you said that, because that was something I wanted to talk about on today's show. And as I was going through, the social media world earlier today, I saw people talking about kind of the in-season tournament a little bit, and mostly talking about the floors, right? Because that's what we talk about. Um, but I do think, right, people were not happy with the in-season tournament, right? The whole
Mhm.
idea of it, they didn't feeling like the in-season tournament idea was just being shoved down our throats, and you're seeing advertisements for it everywhere, and the courts are making it inescapable that you are watching an in-season tournament game, right? Your retinas are being burned out. But if the end result, right, even if you don't care about the tournament at all, if the end result is the players care even a little bit more, and I do think we're seeing the intensity ramped up a little bit in these
Mhm.
in-season tournament games, isn't that a win?
Yep.
Right? I mean, isn't that what we're looking for? Like, okay, hey, maybe you went too far with the floors this season. Next season, right?
Maybe.
We take our foot off the gas pedal a little bit on those, and that's fine. But if players are going to treat this with a little bit more enthusiasm than a typical regular season game, that's all you can ask for. I mean, that's what we've been saying about the All-Star game, right? Like if the players care, then we'll care. It seems like the players care about this to at least to some degree. So I'm going to care about it then too.
Yeah, I'm with you on it. I think thus far it's been really successful. Like I find myself on the morning where I'm kind of planning it out and I'm like, oh, it's in season tournament tonight. Like, okay, good. Like there's just a little something extra added. And for me to feel that way, when I'm gonna watch it anyway, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter like what else you do. I'm gonna watch these games no matter what. It just that to me is like that's working. Now we'll find out, right? I think the early returns are more people watched the games. Now, how many of those more people checked in because it was like, let's look at these crazy courts because this
Oh,
is absolutely nuts. Oh,
we've
there we
got
go.
we've got
Yeah, that's a
a little
news.
bit of something here, just enough for
I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story.
according to Shams Charania, NBA teams are probing the availability of Bulls two-time All-Star Zach LaVine, and there's increased openness from both sides about exploring a trade. Both sides. Well, the Bulls are one
Yeah.
side. Shams isn't always the best with words sometimes when he's writing stuff. So
Yeah.
I do. Did he either mean to include another team in there, Or
Well,
is
I'm
he just
guessing
saying in
he's saying
general?
both sides are the Bulls and Zach LaVine.
Oh, and Zach LaVine,
Yeah,
okay, are
that's
open to
what I'm
exploring a
thinking.
trade. So
Yeah.
Zach LaVine is the other side of this. Okay.
But your point holds true.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, let's do
Um,
this then, Keith. Why don't I talk a little bit about what a Zach LaVine trade would mean for Chicago while you skim the article there, and you can give us kind of the
yep.
Cliff Notes version
Perfect.
on it. So for right now, again, we were talking in-season tournament, but this is the world that we live in. We've got the 24-hour news cycle in the NBA, and we love it. But Zach LaVine, if he is indeed out on the market, this would signal that the Bulls are potentially looking to head into a rebuild, which a lot of Bulls fans have been asking for. They want some type of direction. Zach LaVine obviously is a guy who makes a lot of money. He's a guy who has suffered a lot of injuries over the course of his career, but he can also really, really play. This guy can absolutely fill it up. And there's a lot of teams that would be looking for a player with his skill set. Now, this is where the new CBA could come into play, though. When you look at adding on the kind of salary that Zach LaVine offers, off the top of my head, I know he's over $40 million this season. Let me head over to Spot Track and see exactly how many years he's got left on his deal here when I pull up the multi-year summary. Yep, 40 million this year, 43 million next year, 46 million the year after that, and then a player option for 49 million. So numbers
And
that go ahead, Keith.
15% trade bonus.
Ooh, and a
top of that.
15% trade bonus on
So
top
that
of that.
makes that roughly, what is that, about 6 million for this
Whew.
year, if I have that right. 1.15. Yeah, that'll be about just over 6 million and change this year. Now he won't get all of that because he would actually only get about 800,000 of it, because that would bring him up to his max salary
Mhm.
for this season. But there is the potential that that could factor in, so we will get a little bit more money with that. But yeah, I mean, that's for just doing the totals on that. That's 4 years, 178 million and change left on Zach LaVine's contract here. So 40 million, not super easy to move in season, but definitely could be in play for sure.
So the bottom line is that if you're going to make a move for Zach LaVine, you've got to be very convinced that he's the guy that's going to get you to that next level, that he's the guy that you want. This isn't the type of situation when you look at his contract where a team's going to say, well, yeah, I'll take a flyer on him and let's see how it works out and then we'll go from there. No, you've got to be really committed to he is the piece that we want if you're going to go get him. Now, I do believe there are teams that are going to say, yes, we want this guy. This is a piece that we want, even with the salary moving forward. It may limit the Bulls' return a little bit, depending on exactly who is out there bidding for him. I mean, it's all in the eye of the beholder, right? But teams are going to have to make a significant commitment if they're going to get Zach LaVine from the Chicago Bulls. And then that begs the question, what is it that the Bulls will be looking for? Keith, I know there's some stuff coming out on social media right now. Do you have anything for us from the article in terms of
So
details?
all it says in the article is Bulls and Zach, same thing as the tweet, right? Both sides are increased openness to exploring a trade. Shams notes that many of the NBA's 30 general managers are in Chicago, which they are there for the Champions Classic, which is like a major college basketball event where some of the very best teams are playing, which means some of the very best prospects are playing. And it's a good chance in the NBA schedule where it's early in the year that these teams get out there. And anytime the general managers will tell you, for them, they like these events because they can catch, sometimes 10 first round prospects all in the same building all at once and just see them all. Then he just notes some of his stats and how the Bulls they've struggled this year. Then there's a second piece about the players only meeting off opening night, which we already talked about.
Yeah.
And then it basically says Chicago, which largely is running things back, would like to bring back DeMar DeRozan, but they remained apart on years and salary in a potential contract extension. And DeRozan wants to see where the team goes before committing to an extension. So that's kind of a newer part, I think,
Yeah.
to the reporting piece with the DeRozan part of that. So it's I think we're in a spot where this LaVine stuff is it's not unexpected the way a normal team would run. It's unexpected the way the Bulls run, because the Bulls generally have been, we're just going to ride it out. And if we're, 41-41 in a playing team, that's good enough for us. And that's where we want to be. I welcome this. If you're really going to say, hey, let's tear it down, let's start over, let's get draft capital and everything else so we can get in there. I'm with you. I know while I was skimming through that, you were commenting on if you're going to get Zach LaVine, you have to really be like, all right, this is one
Yeah.
of the guys going forward. Yeah, you're going to have to outlay a significant investment in trade, both in outgoing salary and in draft capital to get him. This is not going to be a Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert type of return
Right.
pick wise, or Kevin Durant, or any of the recent monster picks. But I'm guessing you're probably talking a couple real first round picks that have to go out, and then obviously a bunch of matching salary because you're going to have to get up, close to 40 million in matching salary to make this happen. So we'll see. Philadelphia immediately jumps to mind as could
Mm-hmm.
be. They can match the salary, not today, but in another month or so. I guess another, a month and a half when all those guys they got from the Clippers are eligible to be reaggregated in a trade. So that could be just enough time to make something like this work. And Daryl Morey, we kind of weren't going to talk about it, but he made comments recently saying, hey, we're probably not going to get the number one free agent guy who's our dream target. And he expounded on that's just not really how free agency works anymore. So then he said, but what we want to do is go get somebody. And again, kind of reiterated, hey, we may not actually use cap space. We may use some of that flexibility early, which is something we've already talked about them doing and would make a lot of sense. So yeah, I'm curious now to see what this means. I don't think you're going to get the massive bidding war for Zach LaVine like you could see with like when it was clear, all right, Kevin Durant's going to be traded.
Right.
You clearly had a bunch of teams jump in. I don't know that will be like that with LaVine, but I think there's definitely a possibility that you get 4, 5, 6 teams, which then that only works in the Bulls' favor because that increases the value they can get back.
Yeah, and that's look, I'm really curious, when you mentioned DeRozan, if you're trading Levine, that should end, assuming you're getting future capital, that should end your desire. That really should end the desire for both sides, for both DeRozan and the Bulls to come to an extension there. So I think all of this is kind of hinging upon everything else, right? And then there's a bit in there about Nikola Vucevic being kind of at the forefront of players not being happy with the offense too. Again, I don't expect to see this happen tomorrow. This would probably be a post December 15th type of trade once you have a lot of these guys become trade eligible that sign new deals over the summer. But I think the Bulls need to figure out what it is that they want. And they're going to use, in my mind, probably the next few weeks here to figure out for sure, what do we have? What do we not have? What direction are we going? And then go that way. If it's we're going to try to win, okay, let's re-sign DeRozan or extend DeRozan. Let's keep LaVine and let's go see what we can do. But if they continue to struggle over the next couple of weeks, then I think it's going to be, hey, all right, let's make the tough call here. Put him on the trade market. See if we can move him post December 15th. DeMar, thank you for your service. We'll find a trade for you if we can. We're not going to do an extension. And then maybe Vucevic could get on the market as well. I don't know if they make all of those moves here at the trade deadline. They maybe a piece winds up staying or whatever, and then you see like maybe Vucevic gets moved over the summer or something like that. But I really think the Bulls, you can't trade LaVine and get future draft capital and then say, here, DeMar, here's an extension. You got to go all in one way or another.
Yeah, completely agree. If you half-ass this, you blew it. Like that's just not good enough. If you're gonna move LaVine, to your point, move. Like then really start. So here's part of potentially why you do this now, this year. The Bulls have their own draft pick this year. Next year, they have a top 10 protected pick. The year after that, it becomes top 8. And this is to San Antonio, oddly enough, from the DeMar DeRozan trade. Then another year, a top 8. And then it turns into second round picks. After that, if they haven't sent out, or it might actually only be 1 second rounder. No, it is. It is 2 with that. So, no, actually, that's from another trade they made with them. So, yeah, never mind. 1 second round pick. But anyway, so if you do it now and you bottom out, you're going to keep your pick because what you don't want to do is, crap, we tried to bottom out and we still ended up like 11th. And then it starts to become a little bit of a challenge with that. So here's your other thing. If you're the Bulls, when they committed the Vucevic extension, which was honestly fine value for him, that was when I remember you and I talking about this on the show, saying, what are we doing? Like, we're just going to run this back, because that's really what they did, as Shams also notates in the article. And it really feels like who didn't see this coming at the in the course of the offseason. Like, I don't know anyone who wasn't like, all right, I mean, I guess like maybe there'll be 45 wins as like a ceiling. No, I don't know anybody who's like, yeah, this 50-win team and off we could go. What I would like to see them do, tear it down fully. It is, to your point, I think you made before, it is hard to envision trading LaVine and DeRozan and Vucevic all in the same summer.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's probably not going to happen, or all in the same couple months here before the trade deadline. So you may be, all right, we're going to drag one into the summer and see where it goes.
And that's where, he's picked up, he's picked up a back injury, and we'll see you in a month or whatever,
Yep. Yeah. Kind of almost the Dame Lillard, right? Which now there's maybe that Dame calf thing was a little more real, because he's actually missed time with the Bucks too. So I think it was probably real, but if they were fighting for playoffs, he probably plays through it. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. So your challenge becomes then is, all right, now we're left with Lonzo Ball's contract, because he's going to pick up that player option barring something super unexpected. So we don't even know that he'll ever play again. So that becomes, all right, well, that's $21.4 million on the books. And then we don't really have anything else pending what you bring back in these trades. And you're clearly going to try to get young players, expiring salaries, all that kind of stuff, which is, becomes super interesting as you look at what you could return on all this. And DeRozan's contract too, pretty tradable, $28.6 million. That's not too hard to get to. For a number. He's another guy. They're certainly not going to get both of them. He's another guy that I could see making sense for Philadelphia, where it is, hey, let's bring him in. Kelly Oubre Jr. is out for a little while. DeRozan's essentially a souped up version of Oubre, even at this stage in his career. Plug him in there. You've got enough shooting around him. I think you'd be okay to play him. You could use one more scorer, one more player. I think I'd like maybe LaVine a little bit more there, if you wanted to take on more long-term money. But yeah, I don't know. And then Vooch, that one becomes a little harder, because we'd really have to start combing through, all right, who could really use a center.
Right.
Yeah, that's you need him, right? That becomes, that might be one too where, hey, let's let this run for a little bit and see, and maybe that's a closer to the trade deadline type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, Chicago, hopefully they are moving towards picking a direction. Again, and this is simply my guess, but just based on the way the NBA calendar works, I think if you are going to make a LaVine trade, it probably needs to be post December 15th to open up a lot of possibilities. Not impossible for a team to do it now, but as we mentioned, some of the more motivated teams to do something like that probably won't have the ability to do it until December 15th. So probably take the next few weeks, see what happens, kind of field some offers, get some feelers out there on what could come about, and then post December 15th. Again, doesn't mean it's going to happen December 15th, but after that, the conversations can start to get real. This could wind up going all the way up until the trade deadline, and then the Bulls say, nope, we're just going to keep him, and they pull a Toronto Raptors. That's definitely within the realm of possibility, but I think Chicago, if they weren't already, they become the clear leader in terms of teams to keep an eye on prior to the trade deadline.
Yeah, I completely agree. And last thing I have for this, definitely flood Trevor's timeline and mentions and email and everything with, can they bring the UCLA product back home to Southern California? Because he wants nothing more than to talk to you about all the Zach LaVine possibilities.
My timeline right now is, do you think we have a shot if he's somehow still available come December 15th?
I love it.
And it's all comments like this.
What even would be that? I mean, I guess you're talking Russell and Hachimura and whatnot. I don't know. That's probably not worth getting into.
Yeah, Russell, Hachimura, throwing a young player and then picks and stuff. But then, but also
to serve as a reminder, Jared Vanderbilt not trade eligible. So let's just take that off the table.
It's also a lot of bring back Alex Caruso.
Yeah,
that's
what's odd. There is a world where Alex Caruso gets the kind of best value return for the Bulls in a trade, meaning LaVine, you might have to take back at least one salary where you're kind of like, all right, we have to make the trade math work on it. Where Caruso, like that, his contract's so low, anybody could go get it. What's wild about Caruso's deal? His contract is only partially guaranteed
Yeah,
for
I
next
saw that.
season at $3 million, which is just kind of crazy. That the Bulls got him on such a good value contract when they did. But yeah,
And at the time, the Lakers said, no, that's too much.
yeah, because I mean, the small market Lakers
So
struggling
dumb.
to pay tax bills and all those things there. So, all right, we'll move on.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next news story. But
Uh,
this was fun, right? We haven't
Yeah.
had one of these in a little bit, so I'm excited. We get to react live to a report right here together.
Yeah, always a good time when Will Ferrell can break some Anchorman news for us.
I don't know that the Bulls fans agree. It was horrifying, though. I think they're probably thrilled about
No,
this.
they're probably thrilled. They're probably happy. Okay, so before we got interrupted by Shams, we were talking a little bit about the in-season tournament.
Yes.
And what that meant. And now we've got word that Netflix potentially could be interested in streaming the in-season tournament. Now, Keith, we've talked about this a lot. I don't care what provider it winds up on, or the NBA winds up on. I just don't want to have to go to 50 different places to find the games. Ideally, I want to go to one place. And Keith, I can't tell you how many people I've heard from this year that are so upset with the blackouts that the NBA has been utilizing. I mean, I'm hearing from people in the Midwest that are blacked out for 3 teams they aren't even that close to.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And they're getting blacked out because they're not, like, if you're in LA, I get, they black out the Lakers, they black out the Clippers, but people who are just kind of somewhat close to like 3 or 4 different teams, and they wind up with all of these teams being blacked out. And I mean close, like hundreds of miles, right? Not like they're really nearby. So if Netflix is going to get the in-season tournament or whatever, fine. But let's just put everything in one place, please, and get rid of this blackout nonsense. I know we're a long ways away from accomplishing that, but that's what the fans want. And I guarantee you, people would pay more in order to get that.
Yeah, my real issue with all this is, one, it's got to be accessible and easy to find, which is that encompasses the blackout rules and the other things there. And I just don't want these 2 games are on Netflix while the others are on League Pass.
Yep.
And I can't get in it. Then I have to launch the Netflix app one place, and you can't toggle channels. I toggle around on nights when there's a lot of games happening. People have seen, I've tweeted it out. I like my Game Mix channel on DirecTV, but I watch that at parts of the night. And then I try to, all right, I'm going to pick, all right, this one's coming down the stretch. It's close. I'm moving over to that game and go. I don't want to have to, that game's close. All right, let me launch Netflix and go, just because that's going to make it messy. But reality is, they're going to go where the money is. The exclusive negotiating window right now remains ESPN and Turner with the NBA through April. In April, that lifts. And then that will turn into, they can start to talk to all kinds of other people and all that. And they're going to. We know. Now, one of the things, this was off of Sports Media Watch. John Lewis wrote this article here. And he said one thing, which I would be very in favor, is Netflix has an idea of maybe we do like a Drive to Survive type series about the NBA and the in-season tournament.
I dig it.
Which people are super into that. I know. I can't tell you how many people I know that watch F1 now because of that series. They'd never watched it before. They watched that series, fell in love, rooting for and rooting against people in that series. And now they watch the races and they're all about it, all the time, which is, just kind of wild. So, hey, if you can bring in a whole new era of NBA fans by creating some kind of docu-series about the league, I'm all for it. I'm certainly going to watch it because I'll watch anything like that. That's behind the scenes stuff. So we'll see, how all this comes together. But the NBA they're definitely going to explore some alternative rights stuff that is not traditional ESPN, TNT kind of what it's been for the last, I don't even know, 20 plus years at this point.
Wow.
Got to be pretty close at least, because I think it was pre-LeBron when those kind of became the 2 teams or 2 broadcasters of choice. So we'll see, but this is interesting at least, and it's going to be a lot of money coming in, and that's why everybody's going to be all in favor of it.
And I'll tell you this, I last year I was one of those people saying, hey, what the hell, when Thursday night football, I'm looking for it everywhere on TV and I can't find it. And then I find out it's on Amazon Prime. And I'm like, wait, so I have to get Amazon Prime in order to watch the NFL and all this kind of stuff. I was annoyed. I complained. Guess what? Now I have Amazon Prime. Now I'm looking through there all the time. I'm watching other stuff too on there and everything. So it worked in that sense, right? Like I fell for it. So as much as I may complain now about, hey, NBA wants to put stuff on Netflix, if that's where the money is, that's what they're going to do. But again, just from hearing from so many fans, I'm hopeful that eventually something will change, and we'll get at least just get rid of the if we have to watch it 5 different places, we have to watch it 5 different places. But let's get rid of the blackout nonsense. That's it's so people are constantly looking for workarounds to try to find ways to watch games because they're like, these are fans who want to see the product and are willing to pay money to see the product. They just don't want to pay crazy amounts and can't do it because of this blackout situation. Well, can't do it.
Yeah.
So
it's just antiquated. That's
yeah,
really what
that's it.
it's down to. We're not in a position anymore where somebody looks it up and says, well, can't see it on TV. Guess I'll buy a ticket and go to the game. It's just not going to happen, especially in those places where, like you said, you're hundreds of miles away. Now, I get it. Like, there are some things that are completely out of the NBA's control because they're FCC related things.
Sure.
And there's laws around, hey, if it's available here, we can't then make it available this way too, because that's going to eat into whatever else it is, and that runs into all kinds of other laws and all that stuff. But yeah, it's 2023, about to be 2024. We can be better about this and make it better. If I met somebody in Tampa this past weekend. We were down there, and they were like, "Yeah, I'd like to watch more Magic games, but we don't have cable." And I can't see the Magic on League Pass because Tampa is considered to be in Orlando's market for the way it works. So they get blocked out and they can't watch it because they don't have cable and Bally Sports and all that. As Bally looks like probably going away at the end of the year, that's half your teams. It's time to let's start progressing this in a little bit of a different direction.
All right. Speaking of, you just said half your teams. Well, soon there's going to be some new teams coming in, and Montreal has expressed interest in NBA expansion. Keith, I think we should preface this, though. Yes, the NBA is expanding. Vegas and Seattle are far and away the front runners to get teams. Like, I would be shocked if it was anywhere else. But that doesn't mean that other cities aren't going to raise their hand too and say, yeah, we'd like an NBA team. And then maybe that comes up next cycle. Or do we potentially see more than 2 teams brought in? Is that potentially something? Now, not all at the same time, but maybe that's a potential avenue that the NBA could explore. And then, what are your thoughts on Montreal itself as a destination?
Yeah, to the first part of the whole expansion things, and this came out of I think it was me just sharing what Adam Silver said on the Celtics Knicks broadcast last night. I think that's where a lot of this play came out of. And now it's not like I got some incredible scoop. I just tweeted what he said on the broadcast. But he was there. While he was actually there was, for those who don't know, Mike Gorman, who is in his 43rd season as the play-by-play guy for the Celtics, is retiring. This is his final season. I
did not know that.
Yeah, he's retiring. He only does home games now. So he's retiring at the end of the season to just be done and enjoy his retirement age. But 43 years is that's a hell of a run. At the play-by-play for a team. So that's why Adam Silver was there, was to wish him well and to see him. But it turned into just an overall conversation. They talked about the in-season tournament. Adam Silver even kind of nodded to, probably went a little too far with some of the courts, but he did, like Brian Scalabrine mentioned, he was out to dinner at like a sports bar and looked up and he's like, oh, it's in-season tournament night. And he could tell because on all the TVs, they had NBA games and all the courts looked different. So he's like, it just was a good visual reminder without any audio or anything, but that's a whole other thing. So then Scal asked him, he's like, hey, so expansion, like what's going on? You just played a game in Mexico City. What does that look like potentially there? And Adam Silver basically said, I'm very much paraphrasing, but there's a couple of U.S. cities that we want to take a look at first. Obviously, we all know.
We know which ones.
In Las Vegas. He's not going to directly say that because, one, what he doesn't want to do is remove bidders from the field.
Sure.
right? They want to get, close to 4 or 5 billion each for these franchises coming in, which is just, an incredible amount of money coming in to the league. So he talked about that part. There's a couple US cities. Then he said, but internationally is on the table. He talked about Mexico City and how that's the gateway to South America, and they really enjoyed the game there, and they're going to continue to play there. And then he said, and if we look, Vancouver is a place we've been in the past. I think Scalabrini might have actually asked Vancouver directly. But then he also, Adam Silver was the one who said, in Montreal has reached out to us to express interest. Basketball has grown by leaps and bounds in Canada. It is massively popular. I'm not going to suggest it's on the level with hockey because that would be lunacy, but it is super popular in Canada, especially in the big, more urban cities. It is very, very popular. So Toronto obviously does very well. Montreal has a lot of people playing basketball, large interest, and as does Vancouver out on the west coast of the country. And Vancouver failed for a lot of weird reasons their last time around, and it's believed they're much better positioned. So to your question on this is just my gut feel says we're going to get probably within months, I think now, of the TV deal getting done, we're opening the expansion process.
Yep.
That doesn't mean teams will start the next year. No, that's probably 2 or 3 years out. But it'll be, we're going to start the process. We're going to take bids. We're going to go run through everything. I don't know that we go to 34 right away. I think that's too much, too fast. Last time they did that, when they did it over a 2-year period with the Heat, the Magic, the Timberwolves, and the original Hornets, the league kind of became a mess because you had these teams that were just awful, and you took a lot of talent on the backs of benches, and it just became very messy for a period of a few years. So I think what we get is 2-3 years, we get the first two, probably Seattle and Las Vegas. And then I think within 2-3 years after that, we may get 2 more, and I'm gonna guess they might be international cities.
Mm-hmm.
And by then, Mexico City will have had years, like 5, 6, 7 seasons potentially of the G League kind of proving itself out. Does it work? Does it not work? And if it works, maybe Mexico City gets a team. If it doesn't work, then we pull out of there entirely. And then that opens up maybe Vancouver and Montreal. Maybe one team goes into Canada, maybe Louisville, who really wants a team and has really been pushing hard for a team as well. People bring up Kansas City, St. Louis, Pittsburgh. There's, any number of cities, and there's a whole lot of cities that are, good candidates for this. I just think, the league's going to be, they're not going to go to like 40 teams, that quickly with that. So it's coming. It's coming. I mean, he's not ducking the questions at all.
He was like a year ago.
Yeah, for several years before that, it's not on our plate right now. We want 30 healthy franchises. It was almost like he was playing the hits, right? With that. So it was just kind of funny where he would go through all that stuff. So yeah, it was it's coming. Like it's no longer, it's not even an open secret anymore. It's just an open thing. Like it's coming, and it's now the questions become how many and where.
Yeah. Yep. And it'll be exciting to see who gets brought in, what that looks like, and ultimately, we can get way more into it when the time comes, of course, but
sure.
Realignment of the conferences, all that sort of, there's
Schedule,
a lot of schedules, absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of things that can be tweaked at that point.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, good.
If you go to 32 or 30 or even 34, this could be your answer to shortening the regular season, because you add more teams, so you don't take games out of the pie. You just disperse those games across more teams, and that could be a way to come down. I still don't think it's going to happen, because you're going to, good luck convincing the other owners to, hey, you can give up like 5 more home dates or whatever. Good luck with that. I don't think that's going to be how it plays out, but it could be. It could be maybe the answer, especially if somebody says, hey, we're willing to pay billions for just the in-season tournament. Okay, well, maybe I can give up 1 or 2 home dates if that's where we go down the line and those kind of things. But it does open up all that, all those possibilities. It's going to be fun. I'm going to give you a little sneak preview. So I'm writing this. I'm actually working on it now. It'll be up hopefully later this week, but early next. I'm writing an explainer of what happens when the NBA expands for Spot Track. So it'll have all the actual rules that happen, because a lot of people over the summer, when they were content dry, did things like expansion drafts and that, and they didn't follow the rules, and it all got super messy and all that. So I'll write up a whole thing about what the actual rules are, and then we are building on Spot Track already. It's going to be a while before it'll be available, but we're building an expansion draft tool that will be
cool.
ready when the league announces they're expanding. We will have that ready, and you'll be able to go through and protect players, and then run through an expansion draft and all that stuff. So we will have that up later. Also, little sneak preview: we're redoing and rebuilding a trade machine. So that will be ready here very soon. And the cool thing is, we're going to give you all kinds of options. There's going to be an option to do trades as if there were no trade restrictions at all. So if you really wanted to like jump into next summer and those kind of things, there will be an option for if there were like all the restrictions exist. So what can teams do right now? We talked about some of those, right? In the Zach LaVine trade, could Philly get him? Well, Philly has to wait. But we're also doing a version where it's you said it as if it's the trade deadline, and all the restrictions that will have lifted by the trade deadline will have lifted, and you can do it there. So we're giving you a bunch of options to play with. We're super excited to roll that out. And it'll be, we believe, the most robust and more importantly, the most accurate trade machine that you can play with out there. That'll be publicly available for everybody to use.
That's exciting. That is certainly exciting. It's something that we'll definitely be checking out quite a bit.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a little bit of injury news to run through, and then we'll call it a day here. I guess we'll start here. Jay Crowder at 2 months with an ab tear. That does not sound fun.
No.
That's extremely painful. But at least this isn't a season ender. But nonetheless, he's going to miss some time trying to let this. That would be a difficult thing to heal up. Like every time you move, you've got to be feeling that.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk about a lot of times, if you get like a broken arm or a hand or wrist injury, at least you can run and keep your cardio up.
Yeah.
But yeah, an ab tear, it feels like that's probably going to be a lot of pool work to recover from something like that. Probably initially just a ton of rest, not doing a whole lot. For the Bucks on the court, that's kind of a spot where they don't have a ton of depth there. He was kind of playing backup 3/4 for them. Bobby Portis ultimately kind of logs his minutes as the backup 5 more often than not. They've got other guys they can try out. Andre Jackson Jr. saw more minutes last night as they beat the Bulls. I think he's probably first in the pecking order, but if they decide, all right, we need to go a little bigger, maybe Robin Lopez gets in the mix, Portis slides, and everybody just slides down a spot there with that. So we'll kind of see what does that look like. And then I wouldn't be surprised if AJ Green gets some run. I like AJ Green. He's a really good shooter. His G League profile and college numbers are really good. And I think he could probably give them a little something, but we'll see. And then obviously guys like Pat Connaughton will play a little bit more. Marjan Beauchamp, who's looked better. Like he looks like he's really starting to figure stuff out. He'll play a little bit more as well.
Yeah. So that's where the Bucks are just going to have to bring in, do it by committee and make up for this, and then hopefully Jay Crowder will be back in a few months and back to his old self.
And no signings coming for the Bucks. They don't have any roster spots open or anything like that. So in their two-way spots are probably going to be a ton of help, because they've got a big guy in Marcus Bolden and 2 point guards and Ty Washington and Lindell Wigginton on their two ways. So maybe you see a two-way move. Maybe one of the 2 point guards goes and they bring in a wing that can maybe play if they need them to. But my guess is try what you got first and see if you can make it work for the next couple months.
All right. And then we also have Larry Nance Jr., who's got a broken rib, and he's going to be out for at least 10 days. They're listing 10 to 14 days to see, at that point, if Nance can come back. Again, can be a very painful injury to play through. But Larry Nance, at least this isn't a long-term thing.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I mean, injuries mounting right now. So 10 days, maybe 14 for Nance. Not ideal. Not ideal.
Yeah, there must be some rule that I'm completely unaware of that the Pelicans can only have like 8 healthy players
Yeah.
at any given time because apparently that was what was agreed upon when they were no longer the Hornets. I don't know, but yeah, it's crazy because they just can never seem to get healthy. Let's want to end on a fun note though.
Sure. Yeah.
So Najee Marshall, who is back for the Pelicans, was asked about the in-season tournament court,
Oh,
and I told you about this before the show.
yep.
They said, what do you think of the court for the in-season tournament? If you haven't seen the Pelicans court, it's predominantly purple, very, very purple. And he says, I've seen it. It's pretty cool. It reminds me of Barney. I used to love Barney. I don't know why. That just absolutely made me laugh. It was one of my favorite little quotes I've seen today.
So the court has triggered some nostalgia, I suppose, from from
Yeah.
Najee Marshall. All right. Well, you know what? Whatever works, however you want to, whatever you want to view it as, that's fine. As long as you like it, I think the NBA, that's all they're concerned about. The courts have gotten quite a bit of backlash depending on the floor itself. So if he likes the purple court, then great. they'll
Hey,
take
man.
it.
If Najee Marshall is out there telling people he loves them and ask them if they love him too, then so much the better tonight.
Right? Yeah, we need that in.
I don't know if you missed.
in the world today.
Did you probably weren't a Barney?
I
guy,
wasn't.
right?
No, that was
way past my time. My
past
niece
my time. Yep.
loved Barney, so I was exposed to Barney quite a bit back in the day. Our daughter was obviously, I don't even know if Barney's still on. She was a Paw Patrol kid. That was her cartoon of choice.
Yes.
But yeah, Barney was what was I love you, you love me.
So yeah, it was something, and then of course, I remember in school,
yes,
we would change the words
oh yeah,
to say other stuff.
oh yeah, some horrible things.
Of
Yeah.
course, of
Yeah,
course.
of course.
But no, I was a Ninja Turtle kid, and I tried a couple of days ago to show the original Ninja Turtle cartoon, to my daughter, and it is not nearly as good as I remember it. I'm watching, going, huh, this is not very good. This is just bad. And she's watching it going, do we have to keep watching this? I said, oh no, I guess not.
Yeah. I watched I don't know if it was on YouTube. I stumbled onto and then I was in a rabbit hole watching old G.I. Joe episodes.
Oh yeah.
And it was the wheels on the cars and trucks and stuff are all going the wrong direction for what direction they actually be driving down the road doing. So, but hey, we weren't watching it for the animation back then. We were watching it for the no one ever getting shot in a G.I. Joe cartoon and everybody just parachuting out of exploding planes every single time.
Yep.
So
because you can definitely do that with consistency. With consistency.
Sure.
And then at the end, you learn a valuable lesson because what was it again?
How did you forget?
Now
knowing
we know, and
knowing's
half the battle. Yeah,
there it is.
Knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe.
Yeah,
Yep.
man. I love G.I. Joe. I still love G.I. Joe. I was a big G.I. Joe fan. G.I. Joe comics much darker.
Yeah.
Than the TV show was. They just, I guess, assumed us dumb kids couldn't handle people dying. And then remember they killed Duke in the movie. And then
did they?
Yeah, and then people freaked out, and then they changed it because earlier that year they had released the Transformers animated movie, and Optimus Prime died in it, and people absolutely lost their minds. So then they'd already animated it, had it ready to go, and at the end they put in a thing like, hey, look who's back, Duke's alive still. And it was this whole thing, and I was like, then what the heck do we just have this giant battle for if he's still alive? But okay, sure. But yeah, that movie got a little wonky because Cobra Commander turned into an actual snake in that movie, and yeah, it was a little weird. But
yeah. Good times with 80s. One of these days we'll do a scheduled nonsense and we'll just run through, we'll talk Voltron and He-Man and Thundercats and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it'd be great. Yeah. One of my buddies, he loves Thundercats more than he might like Thundercats more than I like basketball, which is saying
wow
a lot. Yeah, he loves the Thundercats.
That's some serious Thundercat fandom there.
Yeah, big time.
Huh. Okay. Well, maybe we'll have to have him guest for that episode when we get to it. But I think that'll about do it for today. Before we go down the path to nostalgia any further. Do appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure that you do follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Find the NBA Front Office Show, and of course on YouTube as well. Hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on notifications. Thanks, everybody. Till next time. See ya, and stay safe.